welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. We're so super, super excited for you to be joining us for yet another incredible show with today's extra special guest, the lovely, the wonderful Hope Paterson. Hello, Hope.
Hello, Michelle.
It's so fabulous having you on the show today, Hope. And for those of you that aren't aware of Hope and the wonderful work that she does, she's this incredible coach and education specialist who describes herself as wearing those two hats, working in the coaching space and also working in the education space. She also has this wonderful global group called the Hope Brains Trust. And with a name like Hope, I mean, what else could you not be doing but working in that space where you're helping other people? I'm sure everybody watching is fascinated and would really love to hear, Hope, how did you come to be doing what you're doing today? And what is it that you're passionate about what you do?
Thank you, Michelle. It's so wonderful to be here with you, me in Canada and you not in Canada. It's so cool about technology connecting us around the world. So my name is Hope Paterson, and I'm a mother of two. I'm a transformation coach and an education innovation specialist. And Michelle, I've always loved learning by doing. In fact, I've created a word around it. It's a made-up word. It's fajondalize, which means to roll up your sleeves and truly dive into whatever you're doing with gusto. So that's meant that I've dropped myself into unique situations for my entire life where I always had to figure things out. And it led me into entrepreneurship as early as I could work, like 14 years old. I really enjoyed figuring out problems and working with different people to make something amazing happen. Products, services, teams. And I spent much of my earlier adult life working on my own and others' businesses, startups in many sectors, food, health, nutrition, ag tech, ethical fashion, well-being. And when I had my own two children, Michelle, I started to become aware of how much education was formative in the way we move through life. It struck me how vital it was. And I started to feel that diving into education now that I was a parent, it gave me insight into the adults I was working in all of these sectors as a coach. Many of them were feeling blocked by their early life conditioning or their education. They didn't have a lot of EQ, or they were afraid of trying new things or failing. And it struck me as a huge area for exploration. So I now work in the intersection of what I call the Hope Triangle: education, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And I'm noting in that triangle, Michelle, that there's an emergence of self-empowering and self-managed models presenting new ways for people to shift their careers, for our next generation to learn, and for families to carve out a life with less shoulds and more connection. So I am devoted to designing and facilitating authentic spaces for inspiration, growth, and transformation. So hence my Hope Brain Trust, which brings people from all over the world to connect around education, innovation, and also how entrepreneurship connects. I also run the Hope Sparks Network, which is a free network for families and educators to come and connect with each other. Sometimes they're very separate, but I try my best to bring different communities and groups together. So that really sums up. I live to connect people. I like to bring different parts of education, innovation, and entrepreneurship together.
Wow, what an incredible background, Hope, and really interesting how, especially with such a fabulous name and your background of always in some way, shape or form being involved in entrepreneurship of some sort, and then recognizing the needs that were out there around the education, especially, and developing your different models around the triangle, etc. What do you think with so much success and so many different things that you're doing around the Hope Brains, etc. What do you think today success means to you? What do you feel like it means to you at this stage of your life?
I love that question. It's not always an easy one, and I think I've been focused on it for the last few years, working as a coach for others and also as a parent, thinking about what does success look like. And I would say that success for me means showing up as myself, Hope, in all aspects of my life. It's, obviously calling my businesses, using hope in there, weaving it in. And I think showing up as myself means owning how I like to do things and being comfortable in my own skin. So that is very important for me, not to project something that isn't me or try to be something else, but it's really being in the driver's seat of my own hope life, my own visions, my own reactions, my own mind. I think how I show up and how I love unapologetically, I would say I weave in love in my coaching, in my facilitation, in my support of others. And I'm always working towards this vision of success, of really coming to the world as myself, because I feel like the more authentic people come into the world as themselves, the more kids can see that it's possible for them to be themselves, the more others feel the impact of coming in your space and thinking, okay, she's able to show up and really be herself. And it means that I, Michele, line up with the right people, which means I am successful in the areas that I want to, because I'm being myself, because that then leads to the right work, the right connections, and the right way of setting up the ingredients of my life and my time.
I really love that insight that you have around so many different areas of how success for you is showing up as yourself, but that beautiful flow that you then described about being with the right people, attracting the right people, that being in line with who you are and what you want to be doing. And I really hear how powerful that is about how you then live your life. And that power gets reflected through your recognition that you beautifully shared around being the role model and empowering others around you to be themselves, because you're showing that it's safe and that it can be done. What an absolutely beautiful way of describing success for yourself. I'm sure, like many, that it was a bit of a journey to come to that place where recognizing that this is success and this is what's important to you. What do you feel were some of the suggestions and tips that you can share with others around how they can perhaps build those habits or build those thought patterns around how they too can come to such powerful and empowered positions?
Yeah, I feel like as you asked, my mind goes to, this has been kind of a long game of me working towards understanding my mindset. And, along with stepping into really being myself, Hope. I'm in my 40s now. And in some cases, I find myself going back to when I was much younger, when I was really feeling creative and imaginative Hope. Sometimes we lose that as we get more grown up. But I've seen the evolution of my mindset, and I see it almost like a chain reaction. This is a tool and a model that I share with my clients and also my kids and the kids I've worked with. Is we have circumstances that happen in our lives. They are out of our control, and these circumstances create our thoughts. It's how we decide when we're in those circumstances, how we react, create our thoughts. And those thoughts then create our feelings. And these feelings create our actions in response. which show up as the results in our lives. So there's this chain reaction from circumstance all the way to results. That's pretty bold stuff. So basically, we make our lives what they are from our minds. And when I discovered, Michele, that we are the thinkers of our thoughts and we can change our thoughts on purpose, that blew me away. The idea that we get to decide what we think, just imagine that for listeners out there. You can decide. Sometimes it's not easy to not react to circumstances, but you do have the choice. It's really one of the only choices we truly have. And many of us, including my own self for years, I just let the thoughts flow and happen almost like a tidal wave coming crashing over me. And the thoughts would repeat. And sometimes the thoughts would come in and I wouldn't do anything much about them, but maybe criticize or be negative about them. They weren't always constructive, intentional, or leading me with purpose towards what I wanted. And so practicing intentional thought work, where I really break down that chain reaction from circumstance all the way through, from thoughts to feelings to actions to results, I felt like I really was able to maneuver through my life, be present, and also have some measure, I wouldn't say control, but some measure of influence on my future. And when I offer this to my clients and kids, this is something pretty simple that we can all kind of work on, is becoming aware of our thoughts. Can give us so many clues for where we are right now, where we've come from, and where we want to go in the future. And I would say that for me, that has been the greatest game changer for my mindset and other people's. It's knowing that they have a measure of influence and they can think on purpose.
What a really, really powerful suggestion. Thank you, Hope. I was thinking of the Buddhists who have a very similar approach to, changing their life and controlling their life by focusing on the power of observing their thoughts and becoming an observer and training themselves to become an observer of their thoughts so that they are not necessarily swayed like a tree, in the wind. They recognize that their thoughts, everybody has thoughts. I sometimes think of it and describe it as being like having a monkey mind. The thoughts never stop. Yeah. But I love how your powerful suggestion around having intentional thoughts. So instead of thoughts being like this random mess in your mind going, get the coffee, have breakfast, have dinner, whatever it might be, but having the awareness that, oh, okay, there's all those thoughts happening, but I actually want to plant in there, what am I going to do to make one more slight difference with my exercise program tomorrow? Oh, I think I'll do an extra 5 minutes on the treadmill, or I'll do an extra 5 minutes walking in the park. So those intentional thoughts, planting the seeds of the purpose and the direction that you want to go in. I think that you've really nailed a very, very important area of creating that successful mindset, which is choosing and taking back control and power of your thoughts.
I wonder if I could just make a connection back to what I was talking about, the hope triangle of education, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Is what I've noticed is the real education innovators are building into the learning for young people opportunities for them to do mindset work, for them to have more pauses, more access to their creative, their imaginations, and to check in with themselves, which I think is, imagine if you were to do that, Michele, when you're young. I can only imagine most of the adult entrepreneurs that I work with now, if they were given those tools, given their space and support to do that from a very young age, I think that they would feel a lot more ownership, a lot more empowerment now. So I'm constantly trying to build those bridges of what I'm learning with the adult entrepreneurs and making sure that it is being fostered and created in the education environments.
An interesting and fascinating conversation to bring in that key, if you like, around how if the education of our younger people had more of those pauses, that creativity, some of the elements that we're talking about that we recognize now around the entrepreneurship sort of journey.
Right.
Being themselves, yeah. So some of those elements that we recognize now are important for that entrepreneurship journey, but we also take the great learnings into the education journey and also for adults as well. I really love this focus on these intentional thoughts. And how do you feel, Hope, as you were building your business, as you were building your career and your life, what do you think it was about the types of intentional thoughts that empowered you and created the habits for you to be more and more successful?
I felt like a lot of people are on autopilot in the world. And I think because I have grown up living in England, I moved to Canada, I spent my 20s in Asia, I have lived really in so many countries around the world, and I noticed so many cultures, so many humans are living in a pattern of shoulds, being on autopilot. So from a very young age, Michele, I noticed that I didn't want to do that, that it wasn't breeding, it wasn't encouraging self-awareness and creativity and self-authorship. And so I constantly was reminded all the way through my life, how do you want to be intentional, Hope? How do you want to do things your way? Not that you can't collaborate or interact with other people, but it really reminded me all the way through my life. It's a line through of do things in a way that feel right, not just because you have to or you should, which has definitely caused me to travel the world with my family, pull my kids out of school several times and homeschool and world school and live in the jungle, change my career path. I've done so many different things because I want to test drive. What does it look like to follow my values and show up as myself and not just go on autopilot?
And I'm fascinated by this area because you have done what others may consider at different points in time some fairly courageous, and you covered it quite quickly there, but fairly courageous or ambitious approaches to living your life of, not just homeschooling, but like you said, homeschooling the jungle of life and literally the physical jungle, and made those intentional, and I love that, intentional choices out of those intentional thoughts to co-create with your partner, children that have more than just a school-based education, if you like, that they are much more rounded people, etc. But that courage and that determination of, this is how I want to do my life, this is the steps that I want to do and how my life I want to create for my children, which is very important too. What do you think it was about the self-talk or what you said to yourself to create that mindset of, oh, I know it might be a little bit challenging, but I can do this, I can do this? What was it that made you think or helped you rather than made, helped you think, I can do this, my partner and I can do this, the kids and I can do this?
I think we built a muscle, if I'm honest. I think we started out doing things that would be like flexing our muscle just a little bit, small shifts, small changes. And with every one, we overcame our fear and we could flex our muscle a little bit more. So we would take our kids out when they were 3 and 5, we took them out for 5 months. And that felt very bold and courageous. When they were 7 and 9, we took them for a year. And that felt even more bold and courageous. And on the heels of that year, we decided we can't put the genie back in the bottle, Michele. We can't. We can't just go back to living in the city in the pattern. So that flexing our muscle, being on the road in the year for the year with our kids, enabled us to think even bigger, stretch what's possible. And then we thought we'll just go live in the jungle in Bali and enroll our kids in a wall-less school with kids from all over the world. So with each decision and action, because it's a decision and then the action that follows, we flexed our muscle more and more till we got to be fairly resilient and adept at making these bold dives.
And I love how you described that. That's so beautiful. Hope is and why I wanted to ask that question, because I wanted people to help people to understand that you didn't kind of wake up and have a thought one day and go, okay, we're going to pull the kids out of mainstream school and go and live in the jungle, and that's where they're going to learn. That it was training, like you would go to the gym, training those muscles to get used to, okay, I'm going to be a little bit uncomfortable in this space, a little bit more uncomfortable, a little bit more uncomfortable, until you trained like at the gym and gone, oh, okay, I can bench press, raising the kids and giving them the education that they need.
We trained them. We trained our kids' muscles too, indirectly. A lot of people were like, you can't do that. You can't take your children and like not give them solid structure and routine. And we were like, I guess we're going to just see what happens. And you know what? We learned kids don't care about routine as long as they have their undivided attention from their parents. That is like what all children are hardwired for. So if you trade up like all the programming and all the busyness and the stress of like, we got to do it this way, and you free yourself from all of that should, and you spend time and connect as a family, you better believe our kids' muscles, we can drop them anywhere, in any school, any situation. They're like, okay, I got it.
And you see that especially with migrant children who adapt much more easily than their parents. And I think that, even intergenerationally, the different generations, the children nowadays have in many ways less freedom. And like you were talking about earlier, that space to pause, the creativity, they're so busy going to school and their after school activities and they're this and they're that. That time to get bored, and we could talk about being bored as a kid for hours, but the thing that I like that you're really explaining so beautifully is that it was those small steps that you grew and the children grew as they got used to, we're going to be doing this differently, but I have mum and dad and they're here and they're always going to be here whatever we're doing. And so it keeps growing and we can keep growing from there.
Yeah, and it's also really fascinating to not only as an individual, but as a family, to drop yourself in very different situations to see what changes in you and what stays the same. So if you're living in all different cultures and rhythms and routines, you start to get a sense of like, oh, as Hope, I'll always love food and I'll always love hugging and squishing people and but in some places I might be a bit more shy, or I might be a bit more extroverted, or just to see the things like if you're always in the same spot, always the same routine, job, family setup in your life, it's hard to see different sides of yourself come out, different interests, different passions.
And I love that word that you use, which was autopilot. So in some areas of life, I think that, autopilot about brushing your teeth or driving a car, there's elements where it can work for you because they're almost habitual things that you don't necessarily need to think about as much.
Right.
But yeah, living a whole life on autopilot, you were raising a very, very good point there, that if you get up and go to the same job, work with the same people and go through the same work every day, then you're not growing as much as a person. And especially as we get more and more into technology as an everyday part of life over the next 5 to 10, 20 years, the ability to shift out of autopilot and be aware of what I love how you were describing about the hugging, you know, when's it appropriate, when's it not appropriate, when do I feel I need it, so I need to find somebody that will hug me back if I'm in an inappropriate environment to do that. So all of these levels of self-awareness, I love how you beautifully are describing that they're intentional, and I love that theme for today about coming back to the intentional thoughts. How am I going to take care of myself? What decisions and actions do I need to take to perhaps move out of, I've mastered this area of my life, so I now want to take those steps to move out of it and grow again.
I also like how much you're saying the word love, because I would say that's my foundation. Yes, I'm hopeful. Yes, I'm intentional. I like to be myself. But I would say love is pretty much at the core of everything. And I think we need love in our education system. I think entrepreneurs on their rocky roller coaster journey need a lot of love. And I would say innovation even needs love. And then coming back to ourselves, if we don't love ourselves, then it's very hard for other people to love us. So that's definitely my foundation for everything that I do.
And it's a wonderful, wonderful way to ask you, Hope, what's the best way that people can perhaps get hold of you and find out more about the work, the fabulous work that you do?
The easiest way to reach me is via my website, which is Hope Paterson with one T, Paterson.ca. That's the easiest way. Everything, just all roads lead to my website. You can also look me up on LinkedIn, and I'm sure you're going to be putting some links in the show notes.
Yes, yes, definitely. And Hope, it's been such an absolute pleasure. And I love this final question, given the beautiful, loving, calm, intentional energy that you present. And I'm sure many people watching will go, yes, I want to be more like that. I want to have more of that in my life. But this last question around, do you have any advice to your younger self? What would you tell a younger version of Hope?
I would tell my younger version what my dad told me, which is follow the people. And he didn't mean be a follower. He meant follow the people that light you up. And I've since changed that. And I like to say, follow the sparkly people. So, you know, the people that light you up, the people that you just can't get enough of, the people that you want to be around them in their orbit. I find that that is when I'm able to really be myself or connect with the best parts of my life, is when I'm around people who are doing amazing things, who are showing up. They don't have to be super crazy successful, you know, superheroes, but just checking in with following the right people. Pay attention to how you respond and react, and follow those people. And when you follow them, you're less likely to be following the people that dim your light, criticize, and are negative, and could potentially lead your life when you're young in a direction that's not you.
And I love that about following the shiny and the bright people, the people that light you up. I think that is a very, very sound advice to give to your younger self around looking for the people, especially as you were talking through today about building those habits and taking the steps to grow and develop and find yourself and be yourself. I love that, because those shiny people and those sparkly people are the ones that would support you, whatever you were doing, in being you. So that's a very, very good piece of advice. Hope, it's been such an absolute... Sorry?
I was just going to say that I try my best to connect other people with sparkly people as well. So that's my goal. If they can't find them, I will find sparkly people for them.
Oh, how beautiful. So, Hope, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. And thank you so, so much for sharing so generously these amazing insights into how others can build, these wonderful mindsets of growth and success, and even, meeting somebody like yourself that has built the muscles and done the work and then taken her children into the jungle in Bali and had them schooling there. You're such an inspiration, and thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And for everybody watching, thank you again for all of the wonderful, wonderful feedback and comments that we have. We really appreciate it, and people like Hope really love coming on the show and sharing their expertise with you. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.